aging has to do with the mitochondrial problem. So I discovered this back in 2004 when I read an article about these people in Siberia and why they were living longer. And then I looked into the science, and it made quite a bit of sense that this deuterium is an up-level problem, that it's a problem that's at the, like if you're a computer programmer, then you would say you're looking at the machine language. You're looking at you're at the very source code of the problem that's happening, and everything else is downstream. So I looked at this and I said, this can be one of these fundamental reasons why we age and why we get sick. Now let's look into how the damage is done at the mitochondrial level, and we see that we have this deuterium problem.
Let's learn how our next guest gets up, dress up, and show up on purpose. Enjoy the episode. Hello, morning enthusiasts. Welcome to the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast. I am your host, Dr. Lunit, and today I have the honor of introducing a very special guest to the show, Victor Sagalovsky. He is the co-founder of Light Water Scientific, and he is the research, development, and production of this rare water. And with all the research behind it, I'm curious to hear about the benefits, how it helps healing, and the medicine aspect of it. So with no further ado, Victor, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
It is my pleasure. Tell us about Light Water Scientific.
Light Water Scientific is a fairly new company. We've been together for about 3 years based on 20 years of research in commercializing a water that embraces a new standard in water purity. And that standard is the removal, or actually the reduction, of deuterium, which is naturally occurring in all water on the planet. But when you remove it, or when you reduce it, you have a chance to reduce the deuterium levels in your own body. And that's what's very important, because it's been found, the research shows over 60 years, that when you reduce the deuterium levels in your own body, you have an enormous benefit. That benefit is health-wise, for your health span, anti-aging. I mean, the benefits are quite profound, actually, because it's not about putting something in your body, it's about taking something out. And when you reduce it, you have this enormous amount of energy that was opened up to you, mitochondrial energy.
So that's interesting, because it's supposed to help you optimize your cellular energy level as well. And what's the how are you extracting that from the water, the deuterium?
So no standard filtration process will remove deuterium. Distillation, reverse osmosis, any kind of filtration, there's nothing that does it. We came up with a process that only 4 companies in the world can do. And it has to do with taking the hydrological cycle, which we know as something is, the clouds rain and then they evaporate back up. So you have this hydrological cycle. So we take advantage of that and we amplify that. And in that, we're able to reduce this deuterium. Now, I'm going to explain what deuterium is to you. And so deuterium is an isotope, which means a version of hydrogen. We all know hydrogen is the first element and the most abundant element in the universe, and also the one that runs everything, meaning it gives the energy to create every process that exists for life. Now, there's a version of hydrogen, a very small amount, known as deuterium. It happens to be twice the size of the regular hydrogen. And where it creates a problem is in water. We know water is H2O, right? We learned that in school. 2 hydrogens, 1 oxygen creates a molecule of water. But when one of those hydrogen is replaced by deuterium, it's known as HDO or HOD. So that makes it a little bit heavier than regular water. Yeah. And in 20,000 drops of water, which is 1 liter of water, you have 6 drops. It's not very much, 6 drops of this HDO. But this is constantly hitting us in our energy centers, in the mitochondria, where we produce the energy that we need for life. And when you have this problem, you can't really do anything about it except lower the amount of deuterium that you have in your body, so you have more energy to deal with life, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also anti-aging is a big component of this.
Well, they found where this was originally found was in Siberia in the 50s. And they were trying to understand why two populations that were living in near Eskimo-like conditions, very cold, 9 months out of the year, almost, they pretty much ate raw meat as a diet. They didn't have much. They didn't have hospitals and doctors either. And somehow they had 7 to 8 times more centenarians, people over 100 years old, than anywhere else in the Soviet republics or Europe for that matter. 324 centenarians per 1 million they measured in 1958 compared to like 8 to 10 per million everywhere else. And they wanted to understand why. And then after a few years of inquiry and study, they realized it was because they had 16% lower deuterium in their water, this HDO molecule. So because they only had 16% less of this, over time, this gave them an incredible advantage, almost, some would say an unfair advantage in lifespan, but also health span. So they didn't get sick, and they lived into their 90s, well into their hundreds. And this is because the damage that is ongoing by this deuterium problem is lessened when you reduce it in the body. It's very simple.
Yeah, that heavy water. So
The
be
heavy
careful
water,
with,
it's actually semi-heavy water, but yeah, it's also known as heavy water.
yeah, so be careful what you put in your system, right? Because it will affect your everything.
Well, you look at what your system is made from. So when you look inside the cells, inside the mitochondria, you see that your water that your body's made from is already 60 to 70% reduced in deuterium. So it is deuterium depleted water. And we just said, okay, well, what if we put the water into our bodies that our bodies make? Wouldn't that be better for the body? And sure enough, it is.
Yeah, it makes everything run smoothly, a lot smoother, I'm sure.
A lot smoother. That's
Yeah.
the name of the game. You want to increase the flow of protons and electrons without having this deuteron constantly hitting you where it's not supposed to in your energy production centers. So this is quite a discovery in biology, quite a revelation for I like to say, instead of anti-aging, I like to say pro-youthing. So this is a very pro-youthing intervention. But it's also one of those interventions that is so incredible, and time will show this, because there's nothing else that will provide a net energy benefit as we age in life. So this actually winds back the clock in terms of the net energy benefit that our cells can enjoy. So we've got something quite phenomenal here, and it's deuterium depletion. And so when you look at deuterium depletion as an incredible as an incredible thing that happens in our biology, there's a whole science that is attached to it called deuteronomics. When I looked at that back in 2004, I said I want to one day have a company that produces deuterium depleted water, because this is the best way to reduce the deuterium in our bodies.
Mm-hmm. So I'm curious to what piqued your interest to start this 2 years ago. Tell us about the journey to
Well,
this point.
it was actually all the way back to 2004. Now, in 1995, I started on this journey of educating myself in health. I started the very first raw foods organic restaurant when I was 22 years old, and I kept going from there. I moved to Hawaii to learn about permaculture and farming and yoga, and so I was on this path. And eventually I settled on biochemistry and how the body works at the cellular level, at the mitochondrial level. So I really had this profound desire for understanding how the human body works. And so I was an armchair gerontologist from a very young age. I wanted to understand the mechanisms of aging, because the greatest quest that we have is to cure the number one disease that we all share, which is aging. Now, we haven't cured it yet, but we have found a way to slow it down and to keep it at bay, right? So aging has to do with is a mitochondrial problem. So I discovered this back in 2004 when I read an article about these people in Siberia and why they were living longer. And then I looked into the science, and it made quite a bit of sense that this deuterium is an up-level problem, that it's a problem that's at the, like, if you're a computer programmer, then you would say you're looking at the machine language. You're at the very source code of the problem that's happening, and everything else is downstream. So I looked at this and I said, this can be one of these fundamental reasons why we age and why we get sick. Maybe it's not the only reason. I don't think it is, but it's a fundamental one. I want to find that crown on the Christmas tree. It says, hey, this is it, and this is what's to pursue, because everything else is downstream, all your vitamins, all your mineral, all that. Let's look into how the damage is done at the mitochondrial level, and we see that we have this deuterium problem. Then when I saw that in 2004, I said, well, this is great, but what do we do about it? And then it took, up until 2018, 2019 to make a product available, which is our water, commercially, because it's not a simple problem. To remove or reduce the deuterium in the water is very difficult. It's energy intensive, it's technology intensive. It took a lot of NRE, which is a non-returnable investment, essentially, where you throw millions of dollars at something trying to figure out how to make it work, and eventually you succeed. But there's no guarantee of that. So now we have a small amount of water that we sell to people that know about it, the people that have been introduced and understand this new science of deuteronomics, and how reducing your deuterium level by 15 to 20% has a profound long-term effect, because the people that get involved in this, they know this is a long-term intervention. Even though studies show a little bit does go a long way, you want to do this over time, because it's going to take you time to deplete the deuterium levels in your body, and then you want to keep them there. So most people are about 150 parts per million of deuterium in their bodies. Now, I'm about 100. The ideal is about 120 or so. And then if you go lower, you could go lower if you want more energy. But the science shows that as we evolved to a point where we could manage our deuterium level into the 120 part per million range. But we're way over it now. We're in the 150 ppm range. The world's oceans are 155 ppm. And sure enough, some pristine areas in the world, you have water that's between 115 and 140 ppm, which is reduced into what most people are drinking living in the cities of the world. So now you can do this anywhere by ordering our water, and you could slowly reduce the deuterium level in your body and maintain it there. And then test yourself and see that you've gotten there. And sure enough, over time, you'll have a net energy benefit, because your body would have worked a lot less to get to where you need to be. So it's a profound science around this, and I encourage everybody to learn more about this science, the science of deuteronomics, and how deuterium is managed in our bodies. But the number one thing, sure and foremost, is that you can reduce the deuterium by drinking deuterium depleted water.
And that is change on a cellular level. Because, I mean, anti-aging and anti-aging is a multi-billion-dollar industry, right? All the creams, all the stuff we're selling to kind of deal with the exterior, but not really going inward to work with the body, with the flow of the body.
Right. You want to go to the upstream solution, instead of you can't trust the water at the tap. You don't know what's in it. So you want to hike up river as far as you have to go to find the source. So this is a source intervention. And being a source intervention, everything that you do on top of it that's beneficial is added benefit. But first and foremost, reduce the deuterium levels in your body by 15 to 20%. And you're going to feel something that you haven't felt, if you're older, you haven't felt since you were in your 20s.
Is there another way to go about it? Is there an alternative?
Yes. And I'm proud, and I'm proud to say that I pursued that route before I started this company. And that route is two things. One is ketogenic diet, because when you burn, when you use fat is fuel. So when you burn a kilo of fat in your body, you produce a liter of deuterium depleted water. Okay, so that's a deuterium depletion strategy. The more fat you eat and the less carbs, the better your body will be at managing deuterium. The second thing that you can do is fasting, and specifically dry fasting, which I tend to be very good at, because I've gone just about close to a week, over 6 days without food or water. And other people have gone a lot longer, and this is called dry fasting. And this also resets the clock, but it's not very easy. It's psychologically difficult. Physically, by the third day, your body understands that it needs to change to a different form of energy production, which is burning your fat. But this also rapidly depletes your deuterium, dry fasting, because you're burning out all the water. You're getting rid of water that's in your body and the interstitial water, you're using it, and then you're creating more water from your fat stores. And those fat stores are already deuterium depleted. And the water that we make inside the mitochondria is already, as I mentioned, 60 to 70% deuterium depleted. So this is a difficult way to do it. Ketogenic diet, most people aren't ready for that. And I could guarantee you 99.9% of people out there are not ready to go starve themselves on a dry fast for a week. Even a
Not
day.
for long term. Yeah,
Even a
not
day
for
without
long
food and
term.
water, people are afraid of doing that. But these things do work, and this is what nature does. And it's programmed in the world's religions. Animals, they fast, they don't eat or drink when they're sick, so this is part of our physiology as far as mammals go. So yes, starving yourself does have benefit. It has a hormetic benefit. There's autophagy is increased. There's other benefits as well. But first and foremost, your body only recycles about 20 to 25% of the water that it needs daily. The rest we need to take in. So if we take in so we have to think of the water that we're taking in, because 50 years ago, we didn't have reverse osmosis. We didn't know what that was. The only standard of water purity we had was rainwater, which is distilled water, or spring water. But we really didn't understand what water purity was. And now we have a new standard of water purity, which is deuterium depletion. Unfortunately, it's a very difficult standard to hit because it's so expensive to make, and you make so little of it to begin with. From a very big factory makes a small amount. That's going to change over time. This is so new, but it's taken 60 plus years to get to where we're at, because even though it was recognized that deuterium, even in 1953, American scientists recognized that deuterium, or heavy waters, is incompatible with life. Okay, knew this for a long time, but there's simply nothing you can do about it, minus this ketogenic lifestyle, fasting, intermittent fasting, dry fasting, red light exposure. These types of things could help your system manage deuterium, but eventually it outruns you. That's why age happens. That's why cell, when you're 12 years old, may have 50,000 mitochondria, and that same cell replicating over time, when you're in your 60s or 70, maybe only has 1,000 mitochondria. I mean, that's 50 times less, right? It's crazy how much mitochondria we lose, but that is what aging is. It's the loss of cellular energy. Cellular energy happens in mitochondria. So this is something really, really profound. And in fact, here's another thing you can do without ever buying our water. You can go move to one of those areas where you have less deuterium, and you will find that over time you have an incredible health benefit. There's a number of these places. They're usually in the mountains or higher elevations or higher latitudes. Boulder, Colorado, to give you an example, the water out of the tap is 139 parts per million in this semi-heavy water versus 150 in Los Angeles, or even worse in Texas. So over time, imagine living there for 10 years, the amount of net energy benefit that you have over time, the amount of energy that is conserved over time because of this constant impingement on our what's known as ATP synthase nanomotors, where every 5.5 seconds, instead of getting the proton that they so desire, that they need to make that motor spin to produce ATP, instead they get the rude awakening of something twice the size, which doesn't quite fit a square peg in a round hole. And it causes this motor that produces our energy, these nanomotors we can't even barely see with a microscope, which we have trillions of. It causes us to stutter, and this causes a problem in energy production. And eventually it causes a problem in the integrity of that membrane, because when something stutters, it's trying to spin at 9,000 RPM, it causes the membrane that holds it to weaken. Eventually you get leaks in that membrane. When you have a leaky membrane, that's it. That's the beginning of the end. And that end is soon coming, and it's irreversible. So we want to protect all the cellular integrity, and a lot of it starts in the membranes, right? Because our membranes is what protects us from the harsh environment that we live in. We live in an environment where we need oxygen, which is a very Oxygen's a killer. We need iron. Iron's a killer. We need hydrogen. The deuterium parts of it is a killer, right? We live with all these things that we've figured out a way to manage. And the way we manage them is having layers of protection. So we have these layers of protection, and that final layer of protection is against deuterium. So we want to keep that deuterium out of our energy production pathways. And this is the big revelation. When I found out about this, like I said, almost 20 years ago, to me, it was like, hallelujah, right? I got to stop everything and follow this path because I just saw it that it had real merit that was above and beyond anything that you put on like a Band-Aid, you know.
Yeah. And you've done testing both in Russia and in the US. And you've been in, I mean, the light water is what, below 25 ppm? Is that right?
We make what's known as super deuterium depleted water, which is below 25. We make a 10 ppm and 5 ppm. And most people, they dilute this with the whatever water they have to get into a therapeutic window, which is between 80 and 120 or 130 ppm. So you can
So that's
dilute
the
it.
norm.
You can
That's
dilute
the
it one
norm.
to one to 1 to 4. Or you can just say, I'm not going to dilute it. I'm going to drink half a liter to a liter of 10 ppm per day. And then everything else you're doing will just fall in line. That's a less linear approach. That's a less clinical approach. So the more linear approach is to dilute it, so you know exactly that you're going down half a ppm to 1 ppm of deuterium per day. That's what you're reducing in. Okay, that's what your depletion curve is. It's not, instead of a curve, it's very linear. So, or you can just do a liter or half a liter a day, and you'll get there eventually too. You'll get to 20% or less reduction in the body of deuterium. So, however you get there, you'll get there as long as you continually drink
Yeah.
deuterium depleted water and help the lifestyle along. Help by eating less carbs, by actually eating less altogether, and being more keto adapted. You know,
Yeah.
just really being more in tune with the way our physiology really is, the way we're really engineered. Because when you study the human body, you realize that the way we are engineered is at almost like at complete odds against what we're taught. And there's a reason for this. And I'd rather not get into that reason, but what we're taught is diametrically opposed to the way the human body is engineered. So if you just follow the engineering of nature, then a lot of questions can be answered very quickly. You know, and a lot of those questions that people have are, how can I be well? How can I be active and feel incredible?
Energized.
Look, I'm 50. I feel like I did in my 20s. I don't do much. There's not much I do. I eat right. I do deuterium depletion. I do modicum of exercise, and yet I'm coasting on the good laurels of 20 years of practicing this type of lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't need to do much. That's my whole. If there's a takeaway to anybody watching or listening to this, is that to get into optimal health, you don't need to do much. You just need to do it consistently over a long period of time, and then you won't even think about it. You'll never read a self-help or health book again. Why? Because you won't need it.
Yeah.
You'll be fine, right? You'll be healthy. You'll be healthy to a ripe old age. But the point is that we have the same mitochondrial energy, our entire lifespan, that we don't diminish too much in our energy, because everybody wants to live to 100 or 150, but nobody talks about what they're going to look like or what their day-to-day experience is going to be like when they're 100.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Day-to-day, when you're 100,
tell me about, because I know hydration is huge, right?
Right.
We need hydration for the brain, we need hydration for the body. So tell me about, because I know I drink a glass of water first thing in the morning. Tell me about some of the habits you implement to help with the routine that you have in place, the anti-aging, and feeling your energy level to show up.
I will share with you that I think people drink too much water. And when you start drinking deuterium depleted water, you realize that you were over drinking in the first place, because you can drink a gallon of water a day and you'll still be dehydrated if you look at your blood. And the reason is because you're not getting the right water. And and then on top of that, getting too much of the wrong type of water. So for me, hydration has to do with, I drink a lot of tea. I drink a lot of tea with fat. Don't drink much water unless I'm exercising or I feel thirsty. So the goal is to self-regulate, to know how much water you need to be hydrated in your body and your muscle tissue.
Yeah.
And without feeling thirsty, but if you do feel thirsty, that's okay. That's your body telling you that you need water. But to overconsume water,
Tell
to act
Victor,
on
tell me about your morning routine. How do you get up, dress up, and show up?
my morning routine,
Mm-hmm.
if it's warm outside, I try to get a little early morning sun. I get some exercise in, some basic calisthenics,
Mm-hmm.
and make myself some tea, stretch, do yoga, do a lot of spiral movements, a lot of stretching, a lot of loosening up, right? Because I check my aura ring to see how my sleep went. I want
Yeah.
to I want to see how low I got while I slept, and I want to see what my body temperature was. I want to see what my heart rate was, and I want to see what my heart rate variability was.
Mm-hmm.
So, and usually it's pretty good. So I wake up feeling pretty, refreshed and great. My HRV is somewhere between 30 and 60, with a peak of in the 120, 150 range, and then heart rate between 50 and 55 resting. I'm working on getting it lower. So I do that, and then I make sure how I get out of bed, how the intention of that first, when you take that foot and you put it out of bed and you put it on the ground, that first intention is very important for the day. You want to make it consciously. So that's how I get up and show up.
Yeah, you have to be intentional about how you move the body and how you show up for the day. And I agree with you that the first 10 minutes, you really
Absolutely.
gotta
I try
hone
to
in
get
on.
into water. I try to get water on me or in me,
Mm-hmm.
or through tea. Like I said, I don't drink much water because I like tea. I like the combination of fat in your. I like to keep my body in ketosis.
Yeah.
And the reason I do that is not only because it's a better way of making energy for the body, it's less taxing on you, but it allows you to never be hungry.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
that's fantastic, to not
Yeah.
have to feel hunger, and you can go a day or two without food, and. So that's really
It's
important for me.
it's good for the body. Yeah, I concur. Tell us how can we connect with you? Where can we find you?
You can find me through our website, drinklightwater.com. Lightwater is spelled Littewater, and drinklightwater.com. Also, we run a testing lab, deuteriumtest.com, if you want to know what your levels of deuterium are in your body. We also have a summit. We're getting ready to host our second summit, Deuterium Depletion Summit, where we invite the world's biggest influencers in this space. They're all essentially doctors and researchers in the field of deuteronomics, studying this exciting new field of biology. And then if you're a researcher yourself or a clinician, then you may want to go to deuteriumdepletion.org, where a lot of the studies over the last 60 plus years are listed, published, linked in
Yeah.
every language that they were written in. So that's how you could find us. You can check us out on Instagram, Drink Lightwater, or Facebook. So Lightwater is the company. Lightwater is the brand. Lightwater Scientific is the company. My name is
Nice.
Victor, and I hope you get a hold of us. And what I recommend is when you get on the website, download the Deuterium Depletion Guide. It's a free guide, and just read it. Read it in one sitting, and you'll understand what it is. You've already gotten most of the gist from what I've told you today.
Thank you
Good.
for coming in the time. They'll
Thank you
find
so
and
much.
connect with you. Thank you for your time.
Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please comment and tell us what was your favorite part, your favorite habit that you are going to try out for yourself today. Comment below. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. Until next time, I will see you at the top of your best morning routine ever. Stay blessed.